Paul here from Hashtag Sports. I am again in the Prius by myself on a Friday night. This is the life you live when you have a kid that plays travel sports. Sometimes you have to sit in the car while they go to baseball practice, and that's just what's going on. So welcome to Hashtag Sports. Talking about the Bills and Chiefs preview. Listen, this is a game that I've been waiting for since the schedule came out. Super pumped about it. Can't wait. But let's get into a little bit of what makes this matchup so unique and why some of the stats tell me that this game isn't going to be as close as I'm sure a lot of Bills fans fear. Because when I look at the Kansas City Chiefs and you look at what the point spread is, the Bills are favorited in this game by a few points. The first line I saw was 4. I think it's settled at 3 on the road. That's a lot on the road, Bills Chiefs. So it got me thinking. It's like, okay, it's got to be a reason, right? So what's the reason the Bills are favorited, not just by 1 or 2 points, but between 3 to 4 points, depending on what sportsbook you're using on the road? Because that would make the Bills like a 6-point favorite at home, right? So what makes it an almost touchdown separation, right? Hey, Mike Ferrara says being favored at Arrowhead is wild compared to a few years ago. And listen, there's still a lot of people that are going to have a lot of concerns going into this game. I do not blame you, right? This is the game that I think every Bills fan had circled on the schedule and said, listen, you want to be 5-0, 4-1 going into this game. You do not want to be at a 3-2 scenario. You need to be 5-0, 4-1 walking into this game, and here both teams are 4-1. But we're going to talk about some of the reasons why the line might be a little closer than it seems. And first off, from a matchup perspective, Buffalo looks healthy, probably the healthiest they've been since the start of the season. Everybody looks like they're a go, except for Jake Kumerow. He is still listed as likely being out. So the list of inactives will not be a Pro Bowl list of players. Tremaine was full. Poyer looks like he's going to play. The list is long, right? With exception, like obviously Crowder's IR, McKenzie's back from concussion protocol. So it should be a more complete team going against Kansas City. But I went and pulled out, of course, I thought about all this while I was on the road. I was like, you're gonna have to write down some stats, Paul, because you're not gonna see, you're not gonna remember all these stats. So I have it written down on a receipt that I found inside the car, because why would I ever be prepared in life? So looking at defensive stats, and this is where I think there's a large separation between Buffalo and Kansas City. It's primarily in the defensive stats. And there's some things that seem like trends that people might not be paying attention to just yet. So let me tell you where we are. First off, Kansas City has given up 12 passing touchdowns so far this season. Buffalo has given up 3. Buffalo's also only given up double-digit points to 2 opponents, right? That is massive. That is a massive difference between Kansas City and Buffalo. But while Buffalo has given up 9 less touchdowns through the air, Buffalo also is the only team left in the NFL without a forced fumble. Kansas City's generated 6. Huge difference there, right? Massive difference. And with that being said, fun fact, Buffalo leads the league in fumbles. So that gives the edge to Kansas City if we're only looking at certain ancillary stats, right? As far as interceptions goes, Kansas City's second last. They've only got 1. Buffalo's got 8. First downs passing defensively, Buffalo's only given up 54 first downs. Kansas City's given up 69 first downs passing. That is 15. That's like a full game of first downs already, and we're only entering week 6. Sacks, they're pretty close. Buffalo's got 16. Kansas City's got 13. But Kansas City, a very exploitable defense through the air. Very exploitable. I think the difference is, though, that clearly you can see they know they're not going to get interceptions, right? They've got 1 in the season. Buffalo's got 8. These two defenses generate turnovers in a very different fashion. Buffalo is last in the NFL in forced fumbles with 0. And Kansas City is got 6. And they're not top, but I think the league lead is 8. So they're not far from leading the league in forced fumbles. So they generate turnovers a little bit differently. Offensively, pretty close. Buffalo is leading the league in passing yards at 1,659 yards. Kansas City's got just shy of 1,400. Touchdowns pretty close to the same. Interceptions, Josh has 2 more interceptions than Mahomes. Yards per carry is interesting. When you start pulling back the Bills' running attack, and we've been talking for a while that the running attack needs to get stronger, more efficient. The running attack is pretty efficient. The Bills are averaging 5.1 yards a carry. That's a lot. that's an awful lot. And Kansas City's averaging 4.5 yards per carry. Again, Buffalo leads the league in rushing fumbles. They're averaging like 1 a game, right? Yeah, tighten that up. You're especially going against a defense that's how they're generating turnovers is via the fumble. I think the difference is that Buffalo is just simply going to outpace Kansas City. Kansas City, when you start looking at how explosive their offense is, everybody always thinks their offense is explosive. Kansas City's offense is not explosive. Buffalo right now has 6 plays of over 40 yards in the passing game. Kansas City has 2. So comparing apples to apples, Buffalo's offense is just simply more potent. That Chiefs secondary, Matthew Harmon brings up, Chiefs secondary is beat up, and that is absolutely true. Their secondary is beat up. But even though it was beat up, you can't say that Buffalo's isn't, right? Buffalo's secondary has been really beat up. Benford did log multiple limited practices. He's obviously been out with the hand. So we'll see what happens. I don't know if he's going to dress, but, you might get him back. Elam was limited a little bit. I think it was an ankle, but I think he's good to go now. As I said, pretty much everybody looks like they're full go, ready for the game. So why do these stats kind of matter? Well, first off, Kansas City's offense can't move the ball as quickly downfield as they used to. So a team that used to, depend on scoring 45 points, they're not going to be able to do that again. Kansas City still puts up points, but they have to do it with 4 or 5 more plays than they used to. And they've been trying to nickel and dime teams. Now, listen, that's not going to last, right? The league figures you out pretty quick, and Buffalo's been able to figure teams out pretty quick. Their wide receiver group, minus Tyreek, is very, very different. Travis Kelce caught like 4 touchdowns, but only had like 25 yards receiving. So, that's a day. But their offense is very, very different. They still require and still go with a lot of motion, right? Which is why the health of Tremaine was so critical. Tremaine was, again, a full coming off a hamstring injury. Milano's healthy, as healthy as you can have a linebacker after 6 games. But the Kansas City offensive line really depends on a lot of motion from side to side. Most Andy Reid offenses do, right? That's pretty similar to the things that he's done in the past. But they just don't have the ability to stretch the field like they used to. You'll see Kansas City run more heavier sets than you're probably used to. And when I mean heavier, I mean they're going to run a ton of 2 tight end sets, or they're going to have a big guy in the backfield. CEH, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, is just fine. Truthfully speaking, probably the most explosive running back that they have is Jerick McKinnon. McKinnon is slowly becoming more and more of a bigger part of that offense just because, again, he's a bit more explosive. And they're going to need all the firepower they can get for this game against Buffalo. Buffalo fully intends to put 45 on these guys. They're going to have no chill this game. And sometimes that means that Buffalo has a tendency to press. Josh has a tendency to press. And we've seen that even this year, right? Where Buffalo was in a situation where they needed to try and generate offense, and the effort level was probably a little bit higher than the execution level, and that could cause some frustration. But that's the name of the game, right? Buffalo fully intends on scoring 45 points in Arrowhead. Can the Chiefs score that many points? Well, I'll be honest with you. They look like absolute ass against the Raiders, and the Raiders are not a great football team, right? They're not great this year. And Kansas City really struggled to keep up. But you're going to see Kansas City do a lot of things as close to the line of scrimmage as possible. Because what they'd done in the past, and what Kansas City kind of always thought was, we're just going to outspeed everybody. We're going to get the fastest wide receivers we can find on the planet Earth, and we're going to put a Chiefs helmet on them, and we are going to just do it as fast as possible. I think they realized quickly that players like Pringle, even Hardman, they don't catch all that well. So that kind of stifles your offense a little bit. Again, thank you everybody for joining. I see everybody doing work in the comments section. Yeah, if you haven't liked this video, go ahead and like that. Thank you again for sharing and commenting. I read every single comment, guys. It's the job that I've been given. And hey, thank you to Sean for joining. Go Bills. That's Sean Rogers from Mr. Rogers Homes, a sponsor of the Bills and Chiefs preview show. And of course, join Joe, because Joe will call the games live. He'll call the games live for you. I think what the last couple games have shown me, with the Bills going through some depth, is that even though the Bills struggled to get starters healthy, I think they'll still be in a decent position to, even though your Tremaine is healthy, Poyer should play, even though these guys will likely play, the Bills still don't need to be shy about a rotation. That's something that they've been really poor at in the linebacker position. They run Tremaine until hurt. They run Milano until hurt. Poyer and Hyde, they run till hurt. And these guys are getting older. Not to say that Milano and Edmonds are older, but if Edmonds is coming off a hamstring, then maybe it's not a bad idea to try and build a bit of a rotation in, given the situations that you find yourself in, right? Now, of course, somebody is going to have to cover Travis Kelce. Like, that is the biggest problem on that Kansas City offense, is Travis Kelce, because not only is he mean, but he's also one of the best blockers in the NFL at the tight end position. I actually think he's probably the best blocker in the NFL at the tight end position. Guy's just straight nasty. The rules don't seem to apply to him, which I've discovered by watching a lot of Kansas City film. The rules don't apply to Travis Kelce, but even barring that, something that's going to absolutely drive me crazy watching on Sunday, that in the afternoon game, Kansas City, they're going to try and keep Buffalo to sub 20 as far as points go. And the way that teams have been able to do that is they take away those deep routes. Like, even the touchdown that Allen threw, the 98-yard touchdown to Gabe Davis, Allen was a quarter of a second away from that being a total disaster with the pressure that was in on the pocket. It was razor thin to where he had to lead that pass to Gabe Davis. Beautiful execution. You couldn't draw it up any better, right, as far as an execution standpoint. Kansas City is going to try and give similar looks, because if you actually look at that play specifically, the window to throw that pass was really, really small. Kansas City is going to try and make as many small downfield windows as possible. One of the things that Josh does is when he gets into trouble, or when he starts moving through the pocket, his eyes are always downfield. And you can continue to take receivers away downfield from Buffalo, because that's what's been happening. Those shorter routes, those receivers start running down the field a little bit deeper, because that's where Josh looks. So that's definitely something that I would like to see the Bills offense clean up a little bit, is having probably a few more, just when plays break down, a few more options underneath, or at least closer to the line of scrimmage. Because a lot of times you'll see a play break down and then Shakir just turns and just runs as fast as he can down the field, right? The same thing would happen with McKenzie. A play starts breaking down, McKenzie runs his route, and then he just turns and starts running upfield. When they're trying to take deep passes away, that's going to hurt that's going to hurt the offense for Buffalo. From a defensive side, Kansas City doesn't scare me at all. From an offensive side, this is going to be a slower Kansas City team than you probably remember, right? Buffalo is going to take away a lot for them. And I think their goal is to say, Kansas City, if you want to run the football, go ahead. We're going to give you 4 yards of carry, right? We'll give you 4 yards of carry. And then we're going to try and shut you down in third down. And that's where Travis Kelce plays a pretty big role. Mahomes is a tough quarterback to get to. He's a real tough quarterback to get to. So I don't know if the Bills are going to be able to pull, a lot of sacks. Again, they got 16 sacks in the season. So I don't know if you're going to see more than 2 sacks in the game. Mahomes is really, really slippery. And they've just got a bunch of possession receivers right now. Juju Smith-Schuster is not who he was 3 years ago. And I like Juju as a receiver, but he's not the receiver he was 3 years ago. This is a game Buffalo should win. And I mean, I understand why Buffalo is favored by 3 on the road. If Buffalo were home, they'd be favored by more, and it all completely makes sense. The Kansas City offensive line has played better, but I mean, we're splitting hairs between which line is better. Neither line is great. Daniel Ventura says that the Bills, in the comments section, thank you again for commenting, guys. Daniel Ventura says you got to double Kelsey. It's tough to double Kelsey because that means that often when you try to double a tight end, you have to bracket the tight end, right? You have to go top and bottom. Kelsey's really good at finding those soft spots and zones. Doubling tight ends is really tough to do because typically you get that help from the safety. You don't get that help from a corner. And besides, watching Teron Johnson try and man up on Travis Kelsey, I think is something that Kansas City would look forward to. No offense to Teron Johnson, but Travis Kelsey he's a monster, right? The linebacker in man coverage is probably the best chance you have with safety help from the top. So, I mean, I guess that's what you do. And again, Kansas City doesn't really have field burners anyway, so you can kind of bring those, the field gets shorter when they decide to pass the ball because, again, there's less room that you have to defend. Mahomes can throw the ball 70 yards in the air, but there ain't going to be a receiver there to try and catch it. So, or at least that's the way the season's played out so far. I'm super pumped about this game. I can't wait. I expect the Bills to win by 10. That's just where I am. I expect them to win by 10. Kansas City's got to score 35 points to even be in this game. That's the way I look at it, right? Is Kansas City's got to score 35 to stay in because their defense isn't going to stop Buffalo's offense. The offense is simply just too much on a tear right now. Everything's clicking, and everything's been big plays. That's the one thing that I will say about this Buffalo offense is on third down, and that's what's been saving their season a lot has been third down. They've been absolute money on third down. A source of improvement, though, Buffalo's got to tighten up. In the red zone. Yeah, guys, I love what you're doing. Put your score predictions in the comments section or in the live chat if you're joining me live. Put your score predictions for the game. Super curious. I want to see what you guys say. Sean says, how will winning or losing affect the rest of each of their seasons? Both of these teams are still at the top of their division regardless of the outcome of this game. Buffalo's got, Green Bay that is limping coming up soon. You still get to play the Jets, who are better than I think a lot of people probably anticipated. So I think Buffalo's probably in a little bit of a better position in the next few games. And of course, you got the bye week coming up, so Buffalo's going to get a little bit of a reprieve there. Kansas City, I don't see any team in their division beating them. I mean, as tough as they have it right now, as far as injuries go and just overall lack of explosiveness in that offense. And again, that's in context, right? That's in context. Kansas City's offense is still better than 28 teams in the NFL. So let's not confuse that, right? Their offense is still one of the best offenses in the NFL, but it's just not what you're used to seeing from them. I expect Bills to win by 10. I really do. Yeah, I know this is Paul pretending to drive again. This is not a mirror view. Well, this is a mirror view. I am in the driver's seat. I know it looks like I might be sitting in the passenger seat. I am in the driver's seat. There's a steering wheel right here, guys. I assure you I'm in the driver's seat. This is one of those games where, you want Allen to throw for 400 yards. I just don't know if that's really reasonable. Buffalo's got to have a more balanced attack. Again, Andy Reid's been around for a really long time. You got to have a balanced attack, and you got to get your running backs to hold on to the football. Again, this is a team that generates a lot of fumbles, and a Kansas City team that generates a lot of fumbles, and a Buffalo Bills team that puts the ball on the ground a lot. That's a little bit of a recipe for disaster. The opposite side of that is Buffalo generates a ton of turnovers when you throw the football, and Kansas City's going to throw the ball a lot. They're going to need to. That's how you're going to stay in the game. They're going to need to. All right, guys. Paul from hashtag I love you all. Thanks for joining. Make sure you join Joe for the game. Catch Mario and I after the game. And I will talk to you all soon. Thanks for chilling with me on this Friday. I think this is probably going to be a regular thing. Friday preview at about 6 o'clock because I am just sitting on a side street in Niagara Falls waiting for my kid to get out of baseball. So that's what I'm doing. And you know what? I'm cool to be here with you guys. Thanks so much for joining, and I will talk to you guys soon. Now I have to be an old man and try and click the button in the corner of my screen. So I'm going to look a little ridiculous for a moment. Forgive me. I have not mastered the skill of signing off without you guys, without looking elderly. So you'll have to excuse me. Have a good one, guys. Paul from Hashtag. Yep, see, there it was. See, I catching myself looking. All right, guys. Okay. Have a good one. Later.